Welcome to Sound Values, powered in part by LSA Burger and Classic of Denton.
Thank you for tuning in live tonight on DentonRadio.com. We are broadcasting out of the beautiful Discover Denton Welcome Center on the ever-welcoming in gorgeous springtime weather, Denton Square. I am sitting here right now with that Higgy. We got Jay Higg hanging out. Joseph Higginbotham hanging out with us in the studio. Many, many, many different names, many different hats this man wears, no pun intended. He does wear a lot of different hats. Trust me, I'm friends with him. He's got a wardrobe that's out of control. Man, I'm excited to have you in the studio tonight. I think it's probably been about maybe a year or more.
It's been a little more, I think.
Since you've been in here, man.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
You know, I would say, the style of music has changed drastically.
Absolutely.
I would say.
Absolutely.
And, that was one of the first things when Lofty and I were just kind of talking one day. We were talking about different music. I think you came, as you usually do, hanging out at Breakfast and Beats.
Yeah.
And he was like, man, Joe put out a new track. It's tight, man. You know, it's a lot different. And I was like, all right, cool. I got to go give this stuff a listen and see what he's talking about. And tremendously different, you know. And not only the subject matter, but the music as well, the music. And so kind of just before we kind of dive into kind of what the music is, how it's changed, my first question is just kind of how, you know, when I first met you, man, you were playing acoustic sets, you know, and now this music that you're coming out with is very different, you know, a little bit more bass, a little bit more hip-hop, a little bit more trap style to it. What took you, you know, and I think we kind of saw it with Listen Lady a little bit, you know, some of that style coming out, but what started to steer you in that direction?
So Listen Lady was definitely kind of the catalyst for that, I guess. I was, you know, I've been playing music for 11 years now.
Okay.
And the music I was doing, I enjoyed making it, but the primary goal with that was writing songs, selling the songs, and not necessarily putting out, you know, discography, putting out an album, an EP, and all of that. It was more trying to hone the craft as a songwriter and be able to make money that way, and be able to, you know, maybe find co-writers, things like that. And I was playing music that, you know, I like all kinds of music.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
And the music I was playing was music that, you know, I guess I started playing in high school, and it was the music that I thought kind of fit the style I had at the time. It was the music.
The person you were.
Right.
Yeah.
But in high school, you know, there were times where I dabbled in other things. I played around with other genres, and, you know, always what I really wanted to do was more electronic stuff. It was more kind of R&B, soulful, kind of hip-hop-y type stuff, you know. I played around with that with some friends in high school for a little bit. That didn't really go anywhere, and I came up here, and I kind of kept just doing the acoustic thing. It's really easy to strum out a song on guitar, you know, and go do an open mic with an acoustic guitar. But Listen Lady,
if you're this guy, it's easy, you know.
Listen Lady, though, that was kind of where I kind of took the plunge into doing what I really wanted to do with music, and that was Evan from the group. He and I kind of conceived the idea with that, you know, and it was a different idea back when we had first, you know, this was like 2011 when we had first talked about it, and we got Luke involved because my idea was to kind of push it more in that direction anyway, you know.
Exactly. Yep.
You know, my thought was, instead of a drummer, why not a DJ or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
And that was my idea of, like, let me test the water, see if I can make a style like this work and kind of pull it off. And I felt like it really went well with Listen Lady. You know, obviously that didn't work out. But it was kind of a sign to me that, like, I enjoyed that more. I enjoyed making music like that more than I did with the acoustic stuff.
Okay.
You know, the acoustic stuff is fun. It's I like that a lot more if I'm, like, at a Denton party or something.
Sure.
You know, and we're all just hanging out, and someone has a guitar and we're passing that around. That's where I like to strum out some Bob Dylan or something like that.
Gotcha,
but like performing, you know, this was kind of the music I've always wanted to do since I was a teenager. And so it just took me a long time, I think, to really just take the dive into it.
For sure. And, you know, I see that, like I said, you know, the intersection between, you know, the acoustic guitar and that music you were making, and then putting that together with Lofty and then with Evan, you know, I can totally see, you know, those two genres were combined, you know,
Absolutely.
and it did work, you know, like people were coming out for Listen Lady. It was fun, you know.
I
you
still
know,
have people who recognize me.
You know,
from
as you said, it didn't work out, but like the other thing you said is that, you know, at the end of the day, what it did is it pushed you, it steered you in that right direction, and I think that. And I would think that, you know, just kind of like what you learn working with Lofty and working with those other people, then you can take that and start to apply that to the music you're doing now.
Well, you know, and Lofty did a lot for that too. I mean, he, you know, we all, you know, we've talked about this before. You know, we all kind of got on the scene at the same time. You know,
Yep.
but I had never, you know, I had never like, you know, tried to learn what y'all do or anything like that. Working with Luke in Listen Lady, that kind of not only forced it, but it gave me opportunities to kind of learn Ableton a little bit, you know, learn kind of what his strategy is there, you know, and I kind of, you know, I credit him with, you know, some of the sound that I have now kind of comes from that influence. You know?
Sitting down with somebody, I mean, you know, it's one thing to go on YouTube and look it up, but if you can sit down with somebody who has the knowledge of a production program on a computer, I mean, they can teach you a numerous amounts of things in an hour that have taken them, you know, a year to understand, you know, as where they can be like, and it's just little things, you know, when Ableton first came out, you know, people were literally just discovering things. They were like, oh, wait, what? Wait, like, oh, this is how you do sidechain compression? Like, you know, it's super, and to me now it's just, it's you know, it's just nothing. It's muscle memory at this point. It's like, oh yeah, I got to sidechain that, you know. But for somebody who doesn't know, if they're like, man, I really want to, like, and for me, it started off with that EDM, you know, having that boom, boom, and having the synth duck under the kick. I was like, how do I do that? How do I make the synth pump? And that was sidechain compression. So it was one of those things where some kid, if somebody asked me that now, I could tell them in, you know, 10 seconds what to do. You know, just last night, Sanford was like, hey, how do I make the sample react with just one pad? I was like, upper left-hand side, it'll say like 1 bar, 2 bars, 4 bars, half bar, click it to none. He's like, okay, yeah, that worked. You know, so it's something like that where if you have that person in front of you, it's just like if you take an online class, you know, online classes, I'm not saying they're a bad thing, but they can be a little bit harder if you don't understand the information.
Right, you don't have someone right there.
Yeah, you can look it up on YouTube, but to have the teacher right next to you and showing you right there.
Right. If you don't understand something, it's good to have someone
makes it a lot better.
You know, who's been there.
Yeah. So, you know, you started kind of developing, you know, the new sound and everything after Listen Lady. What was that process, man? Were you just were you listening to different music? Were you taking bits and pieces? Were there tracks maybe you had made a while ago that you went back to? After Listen Lady ended up, how did you start to hone this one a little bit more?
A little bit of all of that. I mean, I'd say that, you know, growing up with music, my biggest, you know, more modern influence is probably Kid Cudi.
Okay.
That's the person that, you know, that's what got me, like, I was already into hip hop when I like started listening to Cudi, but that's what, like, you know, got me neck deep, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, kind of thinking about the music I wish Cudi made now, you know.
Yeah, it's
and
changed.
Like, I thought, you know, kind of my philosophy with music for any creator is instead of talking about the music you wish was out, just make it. You know? And so that's what kind of my philosophy was you know, I wish personally Cudi was still doing more of that Man on the Moon vibe, you know, and things like that with maybe more of a modern update to it. He's not, and that's cool. So I'm gonna kind of take what I feel like that vibe might have been and build off of that, you know. And I was listening to a lot of like the alternative R&B stuff that's been real hot right now, you know.
Nice, man.
And just kind of trying to find a vibe. You know, and the Foolproof that I put out, you know, that's just one. I've got 2 more right now that I just need to finish laying them down, and then they'll be out in a couple weeks.
Nice, man. And, you know, Foolproof, you know, we'll kind of get into talking about that right now. You know, Foolproof, I mean, we would play it on the air, but we can't because it's so explicit. I loved it, but
I'll get y'all a clean version.
No, but but that's what got me on it. I was like, ooh, Joe's getting wild. You know, but the first thing that I noticed about it, man, was the overall production of the beat. You know, that was the first thing. And you know, those little vocals right at the beginning, you know, where it's not much but it's a little something. That was actually the first thing I noticed. It kind of sounds like a vocoded voice, you know.
And you know, that one was kind of an accident. It was kind of that you know, I did a little artificial harmony for that. I could have done it myself, but I liked how it sounded.
And that's what I mean too. It kind of had that like.
And that's the same. It's the same thing that you hear in the hook. It's just I liked how it sounded. And what would that sound like in the intro? And threw it on there.
Mm-hmm. And it's definitely it's definitely more of a party song in a way, but it's also very chill.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of one of those like in betweener songs. I liked but the production of the beat was nice, and so let's kind of talk about like that. How did you go about making the beat?
So I do all that in Logic.
Okay.
I'm trying to kind of play around with different DAWs right now. I'm trying to get my hands on what I can. I've been playing with Ableton Lite lately.
Yeah.
What I can with that.
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly. It doesn't have everything.
But Logic, that's the one I've been using for 6-7 years now. So that's the one that I kind of do everything with. And I know it like the back of my hand at this point.
Yeah, for sure. That's how I am with Ableton
it's like my
too.
baby at this point. Yeah, it was real simple. So I was using Splice for a lot of the samples on that.
Okay.
And really kind of just went in, and it started out with I did a synth on there that I kind of just played around with. It was just a real simple 4-chord kind of thing, and kind of just built off of that. And my main goal with the music of it was to keep like a little bit of a rock element to it,
for sure.
Where like I threw in like a little bit of a guitar sound, and things
Absolutely.
like that. I wanted it to definitely be different from what I was making, but I wanted it to still have a touch of Ghost of Joe's Past.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I think kind of that song. I went through like maybe 4 different versions of that beat before I finally settled on
this
it.
is the one.
Synth all changed up, the guitars, the drums, everything. At one point, I went and took all the snares out and replaced the snares with other, just whatever,
Yeah.
And just I tried to make it real freaky, real different, and kind of play off of those, like that real old school Man on the Moon, like the production on that album. I really like, especially like the drums on those those songs.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's what I was saying. I was like, man, this production is it's well done, and what a lot of people forget is that it's a good thing to be a good musician, but behind every good musician or good album is a good studio engineer or mastering engineer, is somebody who can take that sound, mix it correctly,
right,
and then boost it to where it's not annoyingly loud,
right?
But like it's kind of like the secret is to being able to turn the song up without that volume increasing. You know what I mean? It's a weird thing to say. It's like the elements of the track go up, but the overall volume of the annoyance doesn't.
That peak isn't getting too high,
exactly. The peak. And that can be one of the hardest things when you first start recording music, and you start doing the mixing and mastering is the loudness versus sound quality.
Well, especially because loudness, you got loudness and you have perceived loudness, I started out doing this just looking at meters, trying to do that, and got to a point where like that was just working against me, because I was using my eyes to determine something that is all judged up here. You know?
And you can you can get a visualizer in Ableton where you can look at everything, but at the end of the day, man, I don't even really know what most of that means. Right. So what works the best for me is to listen to a track on multiple platforms, or multiple, so headphones, speakers, phone, car, and then if you have access to a venue, maybe if you play at a venue from time to time, try it at that venue and see how it sounds.
Right.
That is where I've found my best, is when I can go back and go, okay, cool, like the bass sounds great in the headphones. But on a pair of speakers or like at a venue, it's way too loud, because because like you can have that vibrate, it feels good right here, but it's right here, you're thinking about it differently, and your snares and everything can be popping really through when it's this close, to your ears.
That's the thing about mastering, is just listening to it on as many as possible. And then I think the toughest thing about it is accepting a compromise at some point. It's not going to sound good on everything. It might sound good on everything. It's not going to sound perfect on everything. But if you can get it sounding good on some, $20 stereo, it's going to sound good on anything,
Yeah, man, I've, my homie, JK has always said, you're always going to be the toughest critic of your music, most likely.
Absolutely.
You're always going to go, oh, I could have done this, because like you said, I think, like, not the perceived loudness, but the perceived listener. There's you there's like the listener, and then there's the audience. And the audience, like, I've told people before, like, if they're playing their first set at Breakfast and Beats or something, like, oh man, I'm nervous, I might might mess up. I'm like, look, most people are listening, but they're not really paying attention. You know, like they hear it, you know, and if the music stops, they're not gonna be like, oh, what's going on? You know, they're not gonna be like, oh, that was a bad mix.
Right.
You know, but there
most people probably wouldn't even know the difference.
Yeah,
too.
exactly. You know, but that's where you do have to, you know, there are times in your mixes when you do need to focus on like the highs and the lows and the mids, because if your highs are too far forward, then your hi-hats and your snares can actually be really poppy, and it can hurt your ear. It can hurt the audience's ears. You know, so in the great words of Juicy the Emissary, Juicy said, "Never sacrifice sound quality for loudness."
Yeah.
He was like, you know, he's like, because if you're at a show, you could turn it up on your mixer and it'll sound just fine, you know. But if you turn it up in the studio with compressors and other stuff, you might end up with a more muddled, way too loud mix.
Oh, and that's the thing. We live in a time now too. It's 2019, and for a long time now, it's been all about loudness. You know, the loudness wars and all that. Everything. You know, I've met with industry people who talk about how, you know, 15 years ago songs were this loud and now they're this loud on average, and it's like now everyone is trying to get loud, because if you're not loud, then you're gonna get skipped over.
Yeah.
But if you're at that level, you're sacrificing
That sound
frequencies.
quality. Yeah,
you're sacrificing
exactly,
quality of the sound. You know, you're sacrificing clarity.
Yeah,
you know?
and you know, sometimes I'll listen to the newer hip hop stations nowadays. I'm not a big fan of most of it. It just is what it is. But that's one thing that I have noticed is a lot of it gets muddled. You know, you lose a lot of sound quality, and I'm noticing that I'm hearing bass booming, and all of a sudden I hear this tiny little synth in the background. You know, and what I liked about your music is everything is presence. Everything from the vocals to the synths to the bass to the guitar and the drums, it's all present, and it's all in its right pocket.
Right.
You know, it's all where it's supposed to be, and it's right where it should. You know, that's what I liked about it so much. You know, that's the type of music that I like. You know, I like the dynamics that you have going on, and you can see that, you know, if you master your track right, you can see it in sound wave form too. Sometimes sound waves can fool you, but for the most part, if your track is one big block, you might want to go back and create some more dynamics. Do some compression.
You want dynamic range in there. You don't want it to. You don't want it to all be. People get bored easy. You know, that's why songs are 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You know,
especially nowadays.
And you gotta, if it's the same thing the entire time, I'm gonna skip it.
Yeah,
I don't have that long of an attention span.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and of course, like I think that the longer and longer that we get things quicker and quicker, you know, of course, our attention span will shrink down, or our want for that instant gratification. Because even I'm guilty of it, man. Everybody is. Of like when a track starts, you skip 15 seconds into it. But I do my best to avoid that, because you've just stolen 15 seconds of that person's creativity. It's like, dude, they took the 15 seconds. That 15 seconds probably took them 2 hours to create, you know? And that 15 seconds is the most important part of that track, because that's what led to everything else you're about to hear being made.
That's why, like, I don't even listen to like new albums anymore unless I am in the right space. I'm in, you know, I've got time to listen to it and to focus on it and all of that, because, you know, I don't want to, something new comes out, I don't want to listen to it and not be into it. I don't want to be skipping around, you know, and I've found myself doing that because I'm impatient.
Yeah.
Or I've got something I got to do later, and I got to get through this real quick, you know. So let's hear the lyrics real quick and hear what it's about. And music is meant to be, I mean, it's meant to be enjoyed.
Yeah.
You know,
either way. Yeah. No matter what, you're supposed to enjoy it.
You know, you don't want to chug wine unless you're in college. You know, the same way that you don't want to chug music. You don't want to. You don't want to force it to go by quicker than it needs to. You know. You want to savor that.
And you know, there are some albums that I can fully listen through. You know, I'm always excited when like Chill Hop releases one of their new like. They do one every season, so spring, winter, fall, and summer. They just came out with their spring one. Listen to it all the way through. You know, it's fantastic. And then there's other albums that I can listen to all the way as well. And something else I've started doing is I started listening to 91.7 KXT a bit more, just because I thought like it would kind of broaden my horizons, and maybe I could discover some new like rock music or some new soul music or some new Americana music that I'm not hearing other places. You know, and I really have. You know, it's opened me. I've been like, oh man, I actually typed them out. I was like, this is a great track. You know, and so making sure that I find that one of my best places to listen to music is not only for the quality, but just to hear it and listen all the way through is in the car. Because in the car, you're hearing the music, but you're also focused on the road. You're not thinking, oh, I need to change that track. You know, sitting down at your computer and searching for music can sometimes result in that click war where you're like, oh, next.
Right.
Next.
You get in this mindset, that's not the vibe. That's not the vibe. That's not the vibe.
And sometimes that can mess with me when I'm making a beat, because I'll make a beat and then a minute and a half in is where the part that I really, really like happens. You know, but if I don't have that minute and a half at the beginning, then that part doesn't make any sense.
Right.
I can't just start there. It feels like cheating, you know, so I need to have a build up that leads to it.
Right.
You know. So you've started the production process. We just talked about mastering, but what is your mastering process? What do you do to make sure your track comes out with those clear dynamics?
So that's one that I am still kind of getting the pattern down for. You know, I have a process, but it's certain steps are coming and going with that. You know, because I just started doing mastering work a few months ago. You know, so that's something I'm still trying to master.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, but. Yeah, basically my process, again, I do it all on Logic. There's a little bit I use Pro Tools for.
Okay.
And it's just because of, I don't use Pro Tools. I use, we have at the studio, we have some hardware that I use.
Okay.
Usually we're using it through Pro Tools, but there's a compressor in the studio that I use that has a couple of, it's a hardware compressor right there, which is nice. And it's also, it's got a digital reel-to-reel, which kind of adds a little bit of a crispness to it.
Yeah, for sure.
And then on Logic, the chain that I use, it's just real simple. I use an EQ. I kind of Logic has a real cool on there where you can match EQ to a reference.
Okay.
And so I'll use. So I've done before where I just I'll just do like pink noise where it's got the lows up and the highs kind of spread out. You know, sometimes I'll take a song that I want it to kind of have a similar vibe to, and I'll see what that EQ range is like. And then you can kind of match EQ and adjust it from there. And that's something in mastering you don't usually want to do drastic EQ changes. What that does is it does the drastic changes, and you can kind of pull it back and see where it all needs to be. And that's just the problem I used to have before that was getting my lows and my highs balanced. You know,
that's one thing that I like to do. In Juicy, the emissary, once again, he pointed me towards this. He was like, when you're looking at Ableton, you're mastering, you have your EQ on there. He goes like, take the lows and turn it all the way up. And then and start bringing it down. He's like,
you want to overdo it and then find its home.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're like, oh my gosh, that's too loud. Because you don't know it's too loud until you hear it too loud, and then you might even bring it down lower than where it was at. Because now you're like, oh wait, I had that, and it's not right. So once you find that spot, and I have found that if I start low and then go high, and like I start at the bottom, it actually doesn't work as well. I like to start it off at the top, my EQ, I'll bring it all the way up, and then I'm like, no, let's go down right here. But I don't start with it and bring it down and then go up from there. For some reason, I feel like it sounds better if I start making it real loud and then bring it down to that level instead of making it completely gone and then bringing it in.
Yeah, I do that where it's too high and I bring it back.
That's what I do too.
Find its home where it needs to be, because then you'll hear where it's not too loud anymore, and then you'll hear where it's too quiet. And it's that in between right there. And it's a real slim in between.
It's a big difference, man. But I've taken tracks where I've worked, and then you go and you hear it in a studio, you hear it at a venue, and then you're like, okay, got to fix that, and then I do the couple of things, and boom, I'm satisfied. I'm like, cool, there you go.
Yeah, and I think with my mastering process, EQing and doing like a little bit of like exciter and stuff, that's the things I find myself adjusting the most. When I go and I listen to it somewhere, it's like, oh, it usually has a little bit too much kick and bass to it. I want it to have a lot of that, but it's drowning everything out. EQ is definitely where I make the most adjustments in the mastering process, because you want to make small adjustments, but they need to be the right small adjustments at the same time.
Exactly.
And they need to be big enough small adjustments.
I know, man. It's I've watched a lot of mastering engineers, guys over the years, guys who have done it for 50 years. Yeah. Guys have recorded platinum albums and all that, and it's funny that like nobody really has a 100% true answer, because it's sound, and sound can behave in all different types of ways, and so there's never one way to record a snare. There's never one way to do a guitar, or one way to do this where it's like, nope, that's the right way.
Absolutely.
It's all about finding the resonance of that room, the resonance of how the mic's going to receive it, and then like learning just all that little equipment here and there, so that if you know that you want this kind of sound, you then know where to set up the mic. You know where to put this. It's such a different, like, if you want your like natural reverb, is like setting up the mic over there and then hitting the snare, and that's how you would get that snare.
Do it in like a bathroom.
So, Like that's what was so crazy to me, man, is if you wanted to do something like that a long, long time ago, you had to set up the mics, but then you only had one mic recording. So that drummer might have to play that a couple of times before you would have all of those elements recorded, because you wanted that one specific instrument to have, or one specific drum to have this sound to it.
Right.
You know, like Led Zeppelin, when the levee breaks, they set up the microphones like in this big foyer of a
because
house.
it's got that real roomy feel to it.
And so that was how they had that was how they created this reverb,
real
feel
ambient
to it.
room mic for that.
You know, it was before you had. I'm not even kidding, like 64 different reverbs in a DAW on a computer.
Well, and it's like I think at Abbey Road they would go into like a room with pipes. It was tile and pipes. That's how they did their reverb. You know?
Yeah, and that was how you got that noise.
Right.
One of the things that I've always found was the hardest in my mixing too is how to make a track feel like it's back in the mix. You know, placing it behind the other instruments, because that's like a thing you think visually about, not like audible wise. You know, like, oh man, how do I set that drum or those cymbals back? You know, how do I set this in the background? Like if you recorded someone's voice who was supposed to be more in the background, how would you make it feel?
How would you pan left to right to make it feel,
you know,
depth?
Yep. And so that's within the DAW, but it's like how, you know?
Right. Yeah, it's just like science of sound and all of that.
Yeah,
you know?
man.
Things that like, you know, I wish I understood more of it.
Yeah, I've thought about trying to find a master class on it or something like that. You know, pay a couple $100 or read some books, or
I'm thinking about
you know, get into a studio somewhere and try to maybe just do some internship time or an apprenticeship or something like that. Just hit it. You know, I know a couple of people who work in studios who would let me look over their shoulder, and I could be like, oh, and I'm not sure that would make me a better musician, but that's not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is to understand sound better. You know, which is like, okay, so this is this kilohertz, this is this, and that's what all of this means.
Right.
You know?
And I found like a real handy chart. I'll send it to you. It was like it was like EQing, like here are the different here are the instrumental ranges by frequency. Here are like it's like warmth and tinny and sibilance and all of that, like where the frequency ranges for different tones and stuff like that would fall and stuff. And it's like it's kind of helped me out, kind of getting an idea. Like listening. You always want to be listening, but it's kind of nice to have a little bit of a guide.
Yeah,
to put you in the right ballpark.
Yeah, you feel a bit more confident.
So you're not like it's not like over here and you're somewhere over here trying to find it.
Because then if it sounds bad, at least you can blame it on that. You can be like, well, I was listening. This is my source right here. This is my source.
Right.
So you know you've got the one track out, Foolproof, right now. And like I said, it's a fun track, man. I like it all. I was literally sitting in my car today eating Panda Express, listening to it again, just hanging out before I went back to work. But you say that you're working on some others. So are you putting a small EP together? What
I'm working on a small EP. I'm working on I'm just gonna start dropping music as frequently as possible. Right now I'm taking classes and you know, other stuff going on and all that. So I'm trying to kind of balance everything out. I had like a real bad cold a few weeks ago, and so I would have had other songs out by now if I hadn't come down with that. But
yeah, that sickness swept through a couple of weeks ago, man.
Man, it was bad. Everyone had something.
Everybody was
even my guy Evan at the studio, like he had like the flu last week, I think. You know, everyone had something.
I think it was
this last month.
Last Friday, man. I got to work, and my whole face was leaking. You know, like I had to, you know, it was spring break, so I was going to go do the tutoring that I normally do on a Friday, and I had to make the phone call, and I'd be like, hey, like I can't come today. I feel like I'm just like crying. It was awful. And like, it got to a point where my coworker was like, hey, I'm going to stop saying bless you now. Like, cause it's like my nose hadn't been raw since I was like 8 years old from like having to like use so many tissues. And we even had the ones with aloe vera. It still wasn't helping. So it was brutal, man. So I understand what you mean. So are we gonna have some tracks? Because like I said, you know, Foolproof, you know, it's a bit more that party song. You know, there's some good flow to it, which is what I liked as well, man. You brought out some rap skills, you know, which nobody I don't think has ever heard before. I think you could maybe.
I don't think anyone.
You know, I don't even think there was evidence of that really in Listen Lady. You know,
not really. No, I was more singing in Listen Lady. I was trying to get into that range, but it never like, you know, we had like that one song Hold Up, which I'm gonna be rewriting that one, using it for my own. But I mean, that was about as close as it came.
Yeah, but that's what I mean is like, dude, your voice has improved so much on this, you know, and it's not like I didn't like it, but dude, like when I heard it, I was like, this is exquisitely better, and I mean that in a very positive light.
No, I feel that.
You know what I mean?
And I agree too.
Yeah, the harmonies, you do your own harmonies in it, and there's the low frequencies, the high frequencies, and it's all there, and you can hear it. That's what I mean. Once again, the mixing was well done. So are we going to be seeing some tracks that might kind of lean a bit more towards the R&B with a bit more sensual vibe? Or are we going to see some more party tracks? What are we kind of thinking for this EP?
This first EP I'm trying to get out, I'm calling it Skullboy.
Okay.
And I'm mainly just kind of, I'm experimenting with the sound on it. This one is kind of what I'm using to find what my sound is, kind of find what I like to do the most. So yeah, Foolproof, it was a lot more upbeat. It was a lot more hype. It had kind of, like a mix of the the positive and not so positive in the lyrics
that's
and all
how
that,
it was,
one I've got, coming up is more of just a personal anthem. One is kind of more R&B vibes on that. I'd say I'm more singing than flowy on that one.
Okay, very cool.
And I'm still trying to develop some where I'll probably play guitar a little bit on it here and there and do that. Other than that, just finding people to maybe collaborate with and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm trying to get 4 more along with Foolproof. I'm gonna call that an EP.
Very cool, man. Very cool.
Skullboy.
Yeah, it's just like I said, it's so different from when we started all playing house shows and you would be opening at 8 o'clock on like the acoustic guitar, to now. It's just a huge difference, and so I think it's really cool to watch somebody grow musically. And we've known each other for like 4 years now at this point.
Something like that, yeah, 4 or 5.
Yeah,
since Tron.
Yeah, exactly.
Shouts to Steven and Jordan.
Yeah, exactly. And it was sad because only recently have my Tron reminders, like the posts that they made, those have started to lessen and lessen recently, but they're from 3 years ago now. Those are from
crazy.
Those are from it's further than 3 years. It's more like 3.5.
That's crazy
at this point. But yeah, things are popping up in my memories. I'm like, man, and 3 years isn't that long, but it does feel. But I mean, things have drastically changed for me in that 3 years.
It feels like last summer we were still doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Wilding out in somebody's kitchen. Having a good time, man. So are we gonna start seeing some Jay Higgy, like some shows, some more hip hop kind of oriented shows?
Yeah. I'm working on that. I'm kind of just working on how I want to do the live thing right now. Cause I don't want to just put my songs on a thumb drive and be like, all right, play track 1. I don't have a problem with people who do that, but I don't feel right doing that because I've always been a performer.
That's what I was going to say. You're more of a performer, man.
Yeah. So I'm kind of working. I'm not sure if I'm going to go the Ableton route or another route, but I'm just kind of looking into some live performance.
Here's what you
stuff,
do: you get Leon Carlo.
Okay.
You get Matt Young. You get Mike Lizecki, and then I think Travis is his name, who plays the keyboard, just like everybody else in town, and then you got the best band in Denton.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I love those dudes, and I say that with an utmost amount of respect.
No, I feel that. But yeah, I think I'm just gonna try to go kind of like what Listen Lady did, where we performed the music as we, there were some that were on tracks, there were some that were just instruments ready to go. Yeah, and kind of just do Listen Lady if it was one guy. It's kind of the idea with that.
You know, if you started you played keys or guitar, and then if you did just that live, and then you hit you triggered your other loops for the rest of the beat, that could be kind of cool too. So you kind of, so the audience, because a lot of the time people will forget that rappers or producers or DJs can actually play music. I think that's one of the most surprising things of when you listen to Austin Post, aka Post Malone. If you go back and you watch old footage of him, the boy can sing.
Don't think twice.
Yeah, he can sing and play the guitar.
That's what I love about. That's what I love about YSA when he does his when he brings his guitar out for all that. Yeah. That's it's just so unique.
And dude, it always gets, if you're over the age of 40, it gets you you're like, oh.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding.
All the people that think they're just pressing play and it's like, oh, he's shredding something out.
Yeah, and as soon as that comes out, it legitimizes the art form in a much bigger way for people.
Absolutely. Shout out to you.
Shout out to YSA, and he's one of the first and only people that I've ever seen in town do that, where he brings his guitar. And
I don't
plays
really see that.
I don't know anybody else.
I've seen groups do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen Lady did that. But one guy. just kind of switching up. It's like, okay, I'm gonna play guitar now, you know, all that.
Yeah,
I like that. It's versatility.
Yeah, and his arm's a little messed up right now, so he's not as shred heavy. But like, I mean, you know, he has this one riff that I like so much. It's just like, it's just so good, dude. Like, it's like very heavy metal and kind of like
he's got chops.
Yeah, it's got this like anthem feel to it that I really like, man. It's a good time, you know. It's one of my favorite tracks, man.
I feel that.
So, you know, you're going to start kind of just figuring out the whole process of how now do you want to present it. You know, you've kind of and
that's kind of what I'm doing right now while I'm still writing and laying everything down. You know,
so how many tracks do you have done? Would you say
laid down?
Yeah, like
I've got 3 laid down.
Okay, nice.
One that I just need to lay down.
Okay, there you go.
And then one I'm writing. Well, I'm writing. One that I'm writing that's probably going to be on this. I'm writing several though.
That's how it always is, man. You're always working. You know, there's always when you're making music. You know, even if you're in a band, whatever, you've probably got 3 or 4 songs. And then you have the one that you're like really hyper focused on.
Right, because you know I'm ADD, man. I can't focus on 10 songs at the same time without saying, okay, these I'm still working on them, but they're going over here for now. And I've got this one that I'm gonna finish before I go to the rest. You know,
I've been in the middle of working on a song, and I'll find something, and then I'll be like, close down, open, and restart making it with this other element that I've all of a sudden found. Because you're like, oh, that just sparked, and it sparks more than that one that you started, you know, a half hour ago just did. I've done that. I've been there before.
Before you know it, my whole doc is just Logic.
Yeah, man. And I know what you mean. You know, you were saying earlier, you know, with just track, you just, you know, and you're like, oh, I'm going to replace the snare.
Yep.
I'll do this. I have done that exact same thing. You're like, come on, man, this sounded better in my head. Why doesn't it sound the way I'm hearing it up here? Oh, well, maybe. You know, that's when I first started, like, I started pitch shifting snares, and I was like, maybe if I pitch shift it, make it a little higher. Oh, maybe if I bring it down low. Oh, now it fits in the mix better.
Right.
You know?
I look into a lot of new techniques and stuff, too, and I'll hear something, like, that's how I kind of, like, went with the snare, I think it was Rat-a-Tat talking about when he did Pursuit of Happiness, you know. I was like, there's not a snare in that song.
No,
you know, it's just other noises, you know. I think back to, and I've seen people do that. I've heard people talk about that, with just finding a noise and making it, like, I think one of the snares in that song is it's like a car window breaking. And I just pitched it up and put a clip distortion on it.
Yeah, it's crazy what you can do, you know. And I think that a huge part of that is not only having the knowledge you can do it, but then also like the creative patience. Yeah. You know, because there's a lot of you know, it's like, oh, dude, I could do that into a microphone and pan it all these different ways. Yeah. But then you have to be like, well, now I got to set up the mic,
that's
and then
going to be a tedious process.
And then I got to pan it, and then I got to record it and click all these
buttons. I've
buttons.
definitely found myself in the middle of, like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, it sounds really cool, but I kind of want to stop and not do it anymore.
I've been there too, man. I've been there too. Well, man, I look excited. I'm looking forward to all the new music that's coming out. Like I said, you're killing it. I really enjoyed the new EP or the new track that you put out. Man, let the people know where they can find your music right now, just so they can go check out the new track we've been talking about.
It is going to be SoundCloud.com/thathiggy. I'm That Higgy on all social media. That Higgy on Instagram. That Higgy on Twitter.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been That Higgy, a.k.a. Joe Higginbotham, hanging out with us tonight. Dude, thank you so much for kicking it with us.
Appreciate it.
It has been a full month of interviews. We have got a whole new month lined up for y'all coming here in what is it? It'll be April. April's coming up, so make sure you get your rent paid. Once again, y'all, my name is Kind Beats. We are here with That Higgy. Y'all stick around for Ellie Bell and the Denton Vibe right here on DentonRadio.com. I'll see you next week. Peace.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to check out DentonRadio.com for new Denton artists and where they're playing next. While you're surfing the internet, make sure you check out our friends Classic of Denton at ClassicofDenton.com.